All right, we're back on Morning Line. Thanks for joining us, talking with Steve Gill, political editor, of course, with Tennessee Star. We told you about what that's all about earlier. Kind of an analyst. He knows his stuff with the Republican Party. Nice to have you on this morning. We're talking about immigration crisis. You see that, the number on the screen. Look, Senator Bob Corker had something to say the other day. I know you heard it. Let's play it again for our viewers and let you comment on that. Go ahead and let's have a look.
I've just never been a part of a group that hated someone for wishing something better for their life. Maybe they have a little different color of their skin and they speak differently. I just have never hated someone who traveled through tough conditions to try to come to a place where they could realize their dreams.
And I think maybe some of that you weren't able to hear, but you know the trip about I've never seen someone treat folks like this who are trying to come here to follow their dreams, and kind of was sympathetic for what he sees happening at the border.
Well, I just think it's interesting that Bob Corker apparently hasn't ever seen anybody do this when the Obama administration, and he did go play golf with Barack Obama a few times. The Obama administration did the exact same thing. Jay Johnson was on, I think it was Meet the Press this weekend, saying we did the exact same thing and we didn't like doing it, but we had to do it. And you were actually seeing the children that were separated from parents at that time put in worse conditions than the children are being kept in basically what is summer camp now in these schools, getting health care, getting food, getting classes. No, you've also got like a former Walmart facility that is literally like a school that is also where these children are being held.
All right, let's take some calls. We go to Peter. Peter, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Nick.
Hey, Peter, go ahead.
A few comments on the issue. I noticed that the immigration advocates always, like to throw out a lot of statistics, and some of them are accurate, some of them are misleading. But, I never hear them talk about the cost of illegal immigration. It was recently printed in the Wall Street Journal. It cost the American taxpayers $113 billion annually. That's just for illegal immigration. Now, that doesn't count the cost of all the drugs that are brought in to Americans and to families. So I wish they would discuss that a little bit. But another thing that I'd like to comment on is, why do they always say this country needs comprehensive immigration reform? Well, their idea of immigration reform is not my concept of immigration reform. Mine is, let's institute E-Verify, let's end chain migration, let's build a law, and let's start changing our laws on refugees. Because now, if they get 1 foot on the soil of the U.S., then they have to have a hearing. So I think, a lot of things, when people use that term, I wish they would define exactly what they mean, because a lot of times Democrats stand for open borders and no countries at all. And I'm opposed to that, Nick.
All right, thanks. Steve, you want to comment on that? You hit on several points.
I think that it's not just what are they saying, it's when are they saying it, because a lot of what he just laid out is what Democrats were saying just a few short years ago, including Dianne Feinstein, including Barack Obama, including Hillary Clinton, were saying those are the same things we need to do. And part of the problem in Washington is that, again, while the Obama administration was treating children and separating them from their parents exactly the same way, we didn't hear this consternation or see these protests. So it's this kind of jersey approach. You're wearing a different jersey than me, so even if I'm for what you're for, I'm going to object to it now, even if I was for it just a few short years
politics.
ago.
What is then, when you hear it from both sides sometimes, what is immigration reform? I mean, we have the laws and the rules on the books. For a lot of people, it's pretty much black and white. It's like, law is, you come into the country legally. If you don't, then you're out. And so what do you mean reform? What do you think immigration reform means from either party?
Well, I think what the Democrats are wanting is open borders. I mean, they're actually saying we should just catch and release everybody. Now, that's not playing with the American people. CBS has just done a poll that says that over 50% of the American people object to the catch and release program that the Democrats are putting, which is everybody can just come here. They actually support the Trump agenda. 40% of African Americans support the Trump plan of detain them and deport them rather than open borders. So what the Democrats are pushing is not playing with the American people, despite all the hysteria, despite the pictures that are telling a false story. And that's where what we saw with the DACA Dreamers borders as well. The Democrats shut down the government to try and get amnesty for these alleged dreamers, and after about 2 days of seeing the poll numbers, they capitulated and backed off. You're going to see the same thing happen while they're doing these pictures and they're creating all this hysteria out on the border. It is the same policy that was in place before, and it is a policy that makes sense to the American people. If you come here illegally, we should deport you.
So, and if what you say is true, then where do you rank immigration as an issue this political season?
Well, when you look at, again, the national polls, particularly in those battleground states. Is it the number one issue? Or, I mean, economy, of course, drugs, things like this. I mean, just in general, where does immigration, and maybe also speak to Tennessee? Well, I think illegal immigration is one of those umbrella issues that it deals with national security. When we're having open borders, how do we know that terrorists are not coming through? How do we know drug dealers aren't coming through and bringing their wares with them? It's also a security issue in our communities. When you've got these MS-13 gangs and other criminals coming across the border, it's also increasing the dangers in our own communities. It's a job issue, particularly in the African-American community, when they see that they're losing jobs to people who are illegally here, who are earning lower wages.
What kind of jobs do you really think they're losing?
Well, we're seeing that I mean, you've got 10 or 12 million illegals working in this country.
I know,
they're getting jobs that others aren't getting, and it
maybe others don't want. Well, you know, there's a lot of crap jobs out there that illegals end up doing that Americans don't want to do, and you know that.
But one of the reasons that illegals do them is because I can pay them $4 an hour instead of paying $8 an hour. That's a competitive wage. And what we're seeing is when we crack down on the border, wages go up, and all of a sudden, at $8 an hour, people are willing to do those jobs.
That's true if you pay more. All right, let's go to Ann. Ann, good morning.
Good morning.
Hi,
two things. First, oh gosh, I've gotten so upset listening. The DEA in the Ohio Bureau of Investigations and the Ohio Attorney General's office has followed the number of deaths due to fentanyl alone in the state of Ohio, and there have been more deaths due to fentanyl in the last 7 years than gunfire in the United States, which is a much bigger problem than immigration, because we have immigration coming in through to the United States than one wall is going to prevent. Secondly, Mr. Gill, this is not a Republican or a Democrat problem. This is a moral problem. We as Americans need to step back and start respecting all human lives. And until then, we're not going to be able to solve any of these issues, Obama issues, Trump issues. We have to respect human lives, all human lives. Immigrants have been coming to Nashville since the 70s. I'm proud to say I helped invite them into Nashville in the 70s. Bredesen invited them here and welcomed them. All the mayors since then invited them into this city, and I hope as a Nashvilleian we continue to do so. Nick, you have a pleasant rest of the week, and I'm sorry to have been so angry.
That's all right, Ann. I'll let Steve respond.
Does Ann lock her door at night and allow people to come into her home that she invites, or can anybody just move in with Ann and start eating out of her refrigerator, demanding health care, demanding that she support them and let them live there for free? Because if Ann locks her doors at night, she's a hypocrite. We should lock down our border and let people immigrate legally into our country as they serve our country. But if you lock your doors at night, Ann, you're a hypocrite.
Let's go to Charles. Charles, good morning. Hey, Charles.
Hey.
Hey, how are you? Go ahead, Charles.
Yeah, you know, that guy sitting there agreeing, talking about his agenda and all that. You know, it's sad. Like I said before, you're in a position, you got the money, you got the power. What else are you looking for? Because Trump done screwed y'all. Trump has got, he was with dictators.
Well, let's see. And I'm with you. All right. Well, I'm not sure where else he was going on that. There are some, and I don't know, maybe Ann felt this way a bit. I'm not so sure about where Charles was going, but I hear what you're saying, and for a lot of people, it's fairly cut and dried what you described. Does she lock her door or not? There are other people that still say, you know, let's not forget what America can represent. That doesn't mean open borders, but that that we don't want to be completely closed off and locked off from the rest of the world, and we want to try to have leadership. We want to provide freedom. We want to be a safe haven for people trying to escape, tyranny, things like that. There's certain things America stands for that I think places us above every other country in the world. And some of them may worry that some of these policies to the extreme, and not everyone's calling for open borders, but maybe allowing some in or working out a better way to handle it hurts America's reputation in that way. And I know you're proud American. You like the idea that America's there for the rest of the world to some degree to help shelter others. Do you think there's some of that in there with these folks that are worried about what they see happening on the borders?
I think what they see happening on the borders is what the media is telling them rather than what's happening. We do have legal immigration in this country. Millions of people legally immigrate each year.
It's hard to, isn't it?
But
it's gotten harder than ever before, right?
It's hard for me to break into your house and steal your stuff.
And I
Why
guess
should
it's
we
hard
make
for
it
me
easy?
to illegally become a citizen of another country, too. A lot of other countries in Europe.
But everybody's not flocking to want to be part of those other countries.
Right.
They want to come here. Here's a better idea, Nick. Why not copy our blueprint of how to do it? If Mexico didn't have us as a safety valve of millions of the hardworking, ambitious folks coming here, and instead demanded that Mexico start enforcing laws, deal with the cartels, if they fought for their country, wouldn't it be better? I mean, look at the Southwest U.S. What's the difference in New Mexico, Arizona, Texas, all those parts that were part of Mexico, and everything south of the border? Why? Mexico has oil. Mexico has hardworking, industrious people. What's the difference? It's a system and people that have left rather than fix their country like Americans had to do to fight to fix this country and set up a system that works. If they would stay home and fix their country, they could copy our blueprint and then they wouldn't have to leave their countries.
Let's take a break on that note. When we come back, more of the phone calls from you for Steve Gill. If you have a question or comment, we'll take them as we talk immigration right after this.
This is a storm.